And even when I first came back, I thought I'll take 3 or 4 months off work. My work was quite flexible that way with touring. And I'll put some things in place and keep a better eye on my mum, even from a distance when I go back to work. But 3 months became 6 months, became 9 months and a year. Then amongst that year, my mum was diagnosed with vascular dementia. A really lonely diagnosis. After quite a fight to get my mum into hospital, to find out what was happening, neither of us understood what was happening to within and around us. And when my mum was being discharged, someone sat us down and said, "Your mum has dementia, and somebody will be in touch." But nobody was ever really in touch. And that set the theme and the standard for what lay ahead. And then amongst that year, finding my mum writing her name on her arm to remind her who she was. Finding scraps of paper in her pockets and under her pillow with my name on it to remind her who the other person in the house was. And a fear. I took my mum one day and someone described my mum as challenging. But my mum wasn't challenging, she was scared. I think it's dreadful, some of the words we use to describe people. I look back at that and it's a dreadful way. If you think someone's challenging, you walk in that door and expect to be challenged. But if you understand that someone's fearful and scared, you'll walk in that door and you'll put your arms around that person and you'll find out what is making them scared. And I think it's a word I don't like. And then amongst that, the two people becoming, in our house, becoming lost, lonely, isolated and falling apart. But after the second and the third year of caring for Mum, dementia was doing everything in its power, and never in my eyes or heart, but everything in its power to affect my mum's greatness, to affect her being recognised as Joan Whitelaw, quite often described as that's the wee woman with dementia, or the wee woman over there has dementia. But that woman had a name and a life and a love story within her and sitting beside her. And then amongst that, being isolated from a community that my mum was born in, grew up in, went to school in, got a job in, fell in love in, brought her children up in, there was two people in our house lost and falling apart together. In fact, for the last of that third year, I got up every day thinking, if we can make it to bedtime tonight, if we can get through today, then we have a chance of making it through tomorrow. But looking back, that's not living. That's just two people falling apart beside each other. And I got up one day and couldn't do it. I couldn't see tomorrow. We were never going to make it. We were never going to reach it. I was absolutely on my knees. And I was 47. And I took my mum by her hand to go to a health centre with a social work department in it to try and get help. And I cried the whole way there on the bus, and I cried walking from the bus to the health centre, and cried walking through the door holding my mum's hand. And asked at the reception if someone could please get my mum the help she needed, deserved, and we're continually promised that to be cared for in our own homes for as long as possible is the best place to be cared for. We hear it every day. But I was told you can't just walk in here, you have to make an appointment. If you look behind you, all the people there had the courtesy and the decency to make an appointment. And I stood crying and I asked again if somebody could just help my mum, because I didn't know what to do anymore. And I was handed a post-it sticker with an 0800 number on it and told to go home and come back another day. And we left there with less hope, less chance, less belief, and less opportunity than we walked in. And that's not why we build these buildings. That's not why people get up every day to go in and work and look after people. We build them to give people hope and chances and opportunity. And I truly hope to be listened to. I hope that's why we build them. And after my mum went to bed that night, I sat down thinking, the next thing will be when my mum will be put into care. Not because it's person-centred, not because it's the best thing for Joan Whitelaw, but because we had fallen apart and reached a crisis. And I didn't want that to be the end of my mum's remarkable, hard-working life story, that because we had fallen apart, my mum was put in the keeper. And I wasn't sure what to do, and I started writing a wee blog. And I felt better on my blog. I didn't feel judged. I felt less lonely, and I don't even know if anybody was reading it. But every night after my mum went to bed, I would write about what happened that day and how I felt inside. And it really, really helped me. It really, really helped us. And I didn't feel as if somebody had told me to walk away and there was no help there. And I made a promise in my blog that in 8 months' time, I was going to walk around Scotland for a week. Not to raise money, not as a petition, and not as a protest, but to ask people to write to me and share their experiences of when someone they loved was diagnosed with dementia. And if people wrote to me, I would walk straight to the Scottish Parliament and ask them to read every single one of them. And people wrote to me, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and now thousands and thousands. And every single letter I've received has the word love. The word love appears in every single letter. But the word love is outmatched and outnumbered by the word loneliness. The word loneliness appears in every single in the letters. The word's isolation. And the word's understanding. I don't understand what's happening to me. We don't understand what's happening to us. And quite often, people with really good intentions who we meet don't understand how we feel, who we are, how we live, how we cope, how we succeed, or how we struggle. And that part of my campaign was called Letters, Life and Love Stories. My campaign for this year is called You Can Make a Difference. Within the letters I've received and the people I've met, it's always people. It's people that make it a really amazing, powerful, beautiful letter to read. You think, I'm so glad you met that neighbour. I'm so glad it was that nurse that knocked on your door or sat by your bedside. But it's also people that make it a truly dreadful letter to read. But it was over above policies and strategies and initiatives and booklets like I'm handing out today. It's always people that make the biggest difference of all, every single time. And a couple of the reasons for this campaign, I'm doing 180 talks across Britain in 220 days. And I'm asking people to make one little commitment. I've got little pledge cards of one thing that they might do in their family, in their workplace, in their community, or for themselves. One pledge that they might do within the next 6 months and commit to it. And you can go on my blog and read them. There's 2,374 nurses and doctors and social workers and nursing students and sons and daughters and husbands and wives. I've put a pledge up there. And if you've ever got time, I encourage you because they're inspiring. It's always about people. But that comes from people. 2 sisters got in touch with me from Falkirk and asked if I would come and visit them. They didn't want to just email or post me their story. Their story was so dreadful they asked if I would come and collect it in person. And I got the train through one day and I knocked on the door. And when the door opened, one sister was just so angry and furious and almost ready for a fight. But she was really none of those things. She was just scared of what was happening to her mum and her family. And the other sister couldn't say a word. And she didn't have to. When she lifted her head up and you looked in her eyes, you could see her heart was truly broken. And I sat in her house for nearly an hour that day and she never said a single word. She couldn't speak. And on their kitchen table was a mass of correspondence about the care or lack of care for somebody's mum. Letter after letter of fights and arguments and lawyers and disagreements. And I don't think it takes 157 letters to care for somebody. I don't think it takes 157 letters to get it right or wrong. It just takes you and I to care for and about each other. That's what caring's about. And I said to them, I'm going to go to Parliament one day, and I won't tell you the details of the story because it's too dreadful to speak about. But But I said, in about 6 months' time, I'm going to Parliament. Would you come with me and share your experience? People have to hear about how you felt. And they said they would. And I left her house that day thinking, I am those sisters. Some days I wake up and I'm just so angry at dementia that I want to scream. Other days I'm so scared that I'm agitated that I don't know how to think or what to do. And other days I just want to lie in my bed and cry all day because I don't know how to help my mum anymore. And sometimes I'm all of those things in the one day. I am those sisters, we're just the same. That's how I feel inside. And I went home. And about 4 months later, I was going downstairs and another letter popped through my door. And it was one of the most beautiful, inspiring, thankful letters you could ever wish to read. It was absolutely full of kindness and thanks and admiration. From the same two sisters, about the same mum, about the same hospital. And the only difference this time was a person, a different consultant. Same mum, same two sisters, same hospitals, in the hands of a different person. And I think he's a brilliant person to be. I think he's a great person to be that can turn a table full of tragedy back into a love story. Take time to listen and help people understand, and do the one thing they wanted to do, was understand what was happening and love and cherish their mum. And I hope that's who you are. I hope that's who you are to the people you met yesterday, who you will meet today, and who you will meet tomorrow. Because the biggest difference of all is sitting in this room here today. We can all make the biggest of differences. That's what people do. And that was the same for my mum. A district nurse, and I don't have time to go through it. But my mum, I woke up one day and my mum was doubly incontinent and I had no clue what to do. But I wanted to help my mum. And 3 weeks of turmoil and giving my mum a bath with my eyes closed so that I wouldn't see anything that I shouldn't, to protect my mum's privacy, her dignity and her basic human rights. And we were falling apart. And nobody was coming to help. The more I phoned, we were waiting in a queue. And one day a district nurse came and she walked into our house and she took one look at us and she put her hand on my shoulder and she told me I was doing a great job of caring for my mum. And she knelt down and she showed me how to bath my mum and she showed me how to lift her and she showed me how to dry her like a lady. And she did all this within 45 minutes. As she walked up the stairs of our house to help us that day, we were lost and falling apart. And when she walked back down them 45 minutes later, we had a chance. We had hope, and someone had given us a shoulder to lean on. And I hope that's who you are. I hope you are that district nurse to the peoples whose bed you sit beside, who knock on your door, or whose homes you walk into. And that's the biggest difference. I'm going to finish because of time and tell you a wee bit about my mum before we go, so you get to know a wee bit about her. My mum's name was Joan Whitelaw. She was born on the 15th of the 7th, 1939. Her mum died when she was 4, and her dad passed away when she was 7. And her big sister, who was a bit older and went on to have 8 children of her own, took my mum in and cared for her. She put her arms around her and she told her, I will care for you, I will protect you, I will keep you safe, I will keep you from fear. And if anybody ever asks me what does caring sound like, that's what it sounds like. I'm going to be there for you. I will keep you safe, I will keep you from fear. And that was the building blocks that made my mum a very remarkable person. My mum couldn't stop caring for and about everybody she met. Because she knew what it was like to be 7 and lost and scared and vulnerable. And how good it felt when someone says, but you're okay, I'm beside you, I will help you. And then my mum went out and she got a job, she went to school and got a job, and she became a seamstress. And then she met my dad, and they fell in love. Her only ever boyfriend, his only ever girlfriend. And I think that's a love story, when two people meet and fall in love forever. And she had no money, and she made her own wedding dress. And you would normally see it in the wee films at a show. And she looked absolutely beautiful. And I think that's a love story. to make your own wedding dress. I had no money, but I made it, and I looked lovely. And my mum and dad gave their children everything and took nothing for themselves. And I think that's a love story. And after my dad passed away, I thought my mum was going to die of a broken heart, because she just missed him that much. And I think that's a love story, to miss somebody so much that your heart hurts. I think that's part of our love stories. And I still ask one question. What is crueler, to die of a broken heart, or not be allowed to remember the person your heart was broken for? And that's crueler every single day. And that's a really short description of my mum's life. Everybody knows a wee bit about my mum, Joan Whitelaw, today. But everybody in here now knows more about my mum than most of the people involved in her care for the last 5.5 years of her life. Because nobody ever asked. They never asked who she was, who she fell in love with. They never asked about her wedding dress. And if we're really going to care for people, and we're really going to support people, we have to find out who they are. We have to find out what makes them smile, what makes them sad. We have to find out what makes them feel safe, and we have to find out what makes them feel scared. And if we don't know about the lives and the love stories of the people that we care for, then I don't think we can truly say we're caring for each other. So I hope you do. I hope you now are able to tell your life story and your love story. And I hope if you're playing the other side that you're there to listen. Because I think life and love stories are the most beautiful stories of all. And we all deserve one, and we all have one. And if we're really going to care for people, we have to find out what they are. Thank you very much.
I really haven't got the words. Donna, maybe what the next clip? This is Darren's story. He's talking about suicide and self-harm.
The negativity towards my mental illness first started when I was 12. I suppose the one thing that I always remember the people saying was that I was a loony and that I'm selfish for wanting to end my life. Eventually they started calling me suicidal, and honestly just remember the way that it made me feel when they were saying all the horrible things. I felt so worthless, as though I'd let everyone around me down. When they were saying all the horrible stuff, I just felt so alone and unwanted. My dearest friends telling me that they didn't want to speak to me because they thought I was an attention seeker and that I was so selfish. That was the first time that I tried to take my own life. I remember it as though it was yesterday. I just remember feeling worthless and pathetic, and that there was no reason for me to continue on living in a world where I was hated for being the way that I am. On the bright side, I guess, there was one woman who I felt stood by me, who inspired me to get better. Demi Lovato. I remember reading about her story online, and I remember thinking that I'm not the only one that has went through this, or that is going through this. A few days before Demi had opened up about her mental illness, she'd released her song Skyscraper, and I remember listening to it for the very first time and the burst of hope that it gave me. It made me realise that I have to prove the people that put me down that I'm strong and that I can make it through and that I really am loved in the world, just like she proved all her brilliance wrong. I remember her tweeting something, and just the way it made me feel, I felt so inspired. The fact that she could openly speak about what she'd went through and how she could openly give advice. She had said in her tweet that it's not selfish for someone to want to end their life. If a person feels that amount of pain in their life, then they see self-harming as a sort of stress relief. However, to anyone out there that has self-harmed or that still does self-harm, then I really advise you to speak to someone, because I'm living proof that life does get better. You just need to accept yourself, and once you accept yourself, then the others around you will start to do the same. After reading her tweet, I remember pulling myself off my feet, looking in the mirror and promising myself that things will get better.